welcome to the podcast, Everything Hollywood, with my friend Larry Namer. Hi, Larry.
Good to be here. Good to see you again. I was away last week in New York, and I missed you. I missed doing the show last week.
Yeah, I know. What was it like being in New York?
It was actually a strange experience, because I'm from there, and I always said New York is the most vibrant city in the world and the best food city, but it was a little bit depressing. I didn't have an apartment to stay in this time because we gave up the apartment, when the pandemic started. But I stayed at a hotel, great hotel called the Benjamin on the kind of Midtown East. But I would say 60% of the restaurants around there were closed.
60% were closed.
Yep. I mean, some of them, going to come back, like the Oyster Bar at Grand Central is going to reopen, but there were a lot of restaurants that are just gone. I mean, so very strange being able to walk down the streets in Manhattan, during a work day, and the streets be relatively empty.
Wow. I mean, a lot of the name restaurants, it's just because they didn't have business, right? So they had to close down, or? Yeah,
they didn't have business. They had to close down. They lost workers. A lot of restaurants, even here in California, people working as waiters and stuff, all of a sudden getting not just unemployment, but $600 subsidies. Yeah. Started to realize they make more money by staying home than they get working. So all the restaurants are having a real hard time getting, qualified workers. And, in New York, some of my favorites are gone. Like, there was one place downtown called Sammy's Romanian Steakhouse, which has been there for 80 years. Just gone, closed up, closed the doors, never coming back.
I can't remember if Carnegie Deli was one of my favorite places in New York. Did that close down before the pandemic, or was it after? I can't remember.
No, Carnegie closed down before. Carnegie and Stage, those were the two, like on 7th Avenue, they both closed. And Carnegie, if I remember the story, it was the kids of the owners, who were then supposed to take over the restaurant, didn't want to be in the restaurant business. So they just closed down Carnegie. Stage is closed. 2nd Avenue Deli is still around. Cat's still around. But the whole deli scene in New York, well, once it was incredible. There was a deli on every corner. I mean, there's probably a dozen delis in New York City now, total.
Wow, that's so sad. So, was your flight okay? What was your experience going? Because I haven't really traveled. It's been over a year, so.
Yeah, no, the flight was actually kind of weird. The airports were good. Everybody wore a mask. So
was it crowded, though?
Not crowded, but, there were more people than I thought would be there. And everybody wore masks. On the plane, I went JetBlue, and you had to wear a mask for the whole flight. And I was flying into Newark because I was going to go visit my brother for the weekend. And it was weird, because I realized we're circling. I said, we're circling Newark. But then I look out and I say, I don't recognize any of this stuff. It looks like farmland, and Newark doesn't look like farmland. And so I asked the flight attendant, and she said, I'll go find out from the pilot. And ends up the pilot comes on and says, there are storms in the Northeast, and we're circling West Virginia now. And I'm like, oh my God, West Virginia. And then 10, 15 minutes later, the pilot comes back on and says, well, because we're burning our fuel and we don't know when we'll land, we're going to do an emergency landing at Dulles, which is Washington, D.C.
Yes.
So we're circling Dulles, and we still don't land. The pilot comes back on and says, there are so many planes that have had to land that Dulles is not taking anymore, so we're going to Pittsburgh. So we ended up going to Pittsburgh, and the JetBlue is great, but they have little snacks, and so they're all out of water, all out of snacks, and because they're not expecting us, there was no ground crew, so we couldn't get off the plane. So you had to sit on the plane until the storms passed, and the plane could take off again and go to Newark, which it eventually did. So I got there, and People said it was like a really bad hailstorm and stuff, but
Oh, hailstorm.
yeah, so that was my
Wow.
adventure going to.
Well, how long did it take you? Like the whole trip?
It's supposed to take 5 hours. I think
Yeah.
it took 9.
Oh my God.
So just imagine 9 hours wearing a mask,
Oh my God.
no water, no food.
No. Oh, crazy.
So
Wow.
not good.
Well, yeah, no,
But
that's
LA's opening up and
yeah,
stuff, so-
yeah. Today, let's talk a little bit about the news, some of the stuff that is happening in the entertainment, and then we'll get into that stuff too. But one of the things, there's an LA Times article that came out this morning about diversity, or I should say, lack of diversity and major record labels. And that's close to my heart, being a recording artist. They were saying that over 90% of all the major label executives are white, and they're not, diverse. There's not enough diversity. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that and your thoughts, and also how could they make changes now, especially that most of the artists, are from African Americans or from different backgrounds. We have a lot of Asians. So what are your thoughts on that, and how do you see the industry changing?
Well, it used to be it used to be entirely white, except for some rare occasions, with Motown and things like that. But you're starting to see the whole complexion of the music business totally change. I mean, K-pop is now good, so Asian music is now very, very popular and growing. The whole hip-hop rap scene and stuff, again, a dominant factor. So the people's taste in music has changed, so you're seeing the artists kind of match the taste. And while I think it's still very white, I've noticed that the next level of people, it's almost like in the football leagues, where there were all white coaches, and now there are a fair amount of African American coaches. So you're starting to see this next level at the music companies in particular, and the film companies, be a lot more representative of what the U.S. looks like, or what the industry looks like. So I think it takes a little bit of time, but I do notice that at most of these big corporations, there's a very strong consciousness about the fact that they have to become more representative. And it's not because it's politically correct. It's just, it's smart business. I mean, who better is going to understand diverse audiences than people with diverse backgrounds? So it's going to take some time, but I feel like at least it's beginning to look like it's heading in the right direction.
Well, this study that they did really found that most of the executives are not. So what you're saying is that they will start from here on out?
If you look right below the top guys, you're seeing a pretty diverse group right underneath, which, maybe you could look at it, and I hope this is true. I mean, I'm predicting that, those top guys will retire, because most of them are in their 60s now.
Yeah.
And then this next wave will come up, properly trained to do it, and they'll have success, and then people will realize that, you're better off having a good mix of people in the C-suite, and it'll not take care of itself, because I think it has to be prompted along. But I see the consciousness there, which is a positive sign. And if you would have asked me this 3 years ago, I didn't see the consciousness there.
So you're feeling optimistic about the changes, correct?
Yeah, I'm feeling that the big music companies have realized that if they want to stay on top of the game, they have to be more diverse. Again, not because it's politically correct, because it's smart business. Who better understands an African American audience or an Asian audience than people who grew up in that culture?
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you for that input, Larry. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll come back with much more.
Start it up.
Welcome back, and I'm here with my friend Larry Namer, having a lot of fun discussing so many different topics within the entertainment industry. And one of the things, Larry, that is becoming really important, especially now after June 15th, is that the city or our state is opening up. You know, it's wonderful, right?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's funny because I'm starting to feel almost human again. I got on a plane last week and I traveled a little, and now I'm back. And well, I actually went to a Dodger game last night, and first time you could go to a Dodger game with no restrictions. If you were vaccinated, you didn't have to wear a mask. And
so take us through the whole thing. I mean, when you go, like, I'm curious because I haven't gone. So do they ask for your paperwork? What
you were on the honor system. So it said that if you have been vaccinated, you don't need a mask. If you're not vaccinated, you do need a mask. So people were on their honor system. And I would say 25% of people still wore their mask.
And do you have physical tickets?
No. Everything was on your phone.
Okay.
You would pay everything electronically, no cash.
Okay.
But this time, the stadium was packed. They said that it was the most people to attend a sporting event in the United States since the pandemic started.
Oh, wow.
There were like 55,000 people at a Dodger game in the middle of a week on a work day, which is pretty spectacular. Yeah. I kind of liked, it before when it was empty and you could just walk up to the food stand and not have to wait. But, it's back to, at least for last night, back to what it was. And, you weren't socially distanced from people. And it was hot, so it was a little bit scary because it was so hot people were breathing hard. So you kind of wondered whether you should be wearing your mask or not. But it felt like life is resuming again.
Well, forget about breathing hard, but didn't you have people next to you screaming and yelling and, jumping up and down and all of that stuff? Were people still doing that?
I would say the answer is some people, but it was a lot more subdued. So I think, if anything, the pandemic and the restrictions kind of changed the way people's habits were when they go to games. So you didn't have like people screaming and yelling and stuff like that. But it was exciting. It was fun to be at a game, and the Dodgers won, and can't complain.
Yeah, I mean, and so you think that the film and TV productions, I mean, is that gonna be resuming to back to normal, or do you know what the procedure for that is now?
Yeah, well, there's protocols that we have to adhere to, and it's pretty, it's like a book this thick, and so there are things you have to go through, and you got to test people when they come on the set, and food service can't be just, the open buffets that they used to have. Things are coming, kind of prepackaged and stuff. But, most of the people I know are getting back into production. More scheduling stuff are starting up in September as opposed to now. But they're in pre-production now. So everybody's being very optimistic that, come the end of the summer, there's going to be a lot of activity.
So there's a lot of stuff that obviously was put on hold, right? All these projects.
Yep.
So how is this going to work? Like all of a sudden, so pre-production is done already on so many different, projects.
Yeah, but you got to kind of go back at it. Let's say we're doing something and we cast it, a year ago, and now we're going to start shooting in September. A lot of the people we cast may not be available because they've taken something else, and their schedules are different and stuff like that. And then we do a lot out of the country. We shoot a lot, particularly in Asia and other places. And, there are travel restrictions there. So it's not just we're opening up LA so we could shoot around here, which is cool. But, we could be going and shooting in China, which still requires Americans to be quarantined for 14 days. So it's hard to get an American producer, director to go to China to make a movie and tell them, oh, by the way, your first 14 days you got to stay in the hotel room and we'll pass your food under the door. I mean, that's not going to get into there. So some of the stuff is opening up, but my feeling is that it really doesn't get normal until kind of the beginning of next year.
So what about, I know a lot of the Hollywood productions are also being shot in Canada, I think in Vancouver, right? So do you know what's happening there?
Yeah, Vancouver and Toronto, big hubs, and one of the reasons, I mean, not just that they have good facilities, but it's easy to get extras because people speak English. So if you got an English language movie or TV show, language is not a barrier, and so they're opened up a little bit more than here, but still they have protocols that you got to follow. Everybody gets tested, and food service is restricted and things like that. But it's opened up a little more than it is here.
Because they were under quarantine until very recent, from what I understand. I spoke to some of my friends in Canada, and they actually, if I'm not mistaken, they even had a curfew. I'm talking about just a few weeks ago. So
yeah, starting to loosen up and stuff, and the book of protocols, like I say, is pretty deep and extensive and stuff. So, I mean, just shooting stuff, even if you can do it, your costs are probably 12-13% higher than if you did it without any of these protocols.
So what about China? Have you done any productions in China? Or?
No, we've got a bunch of projects that, again, with the need to quarantine, so we haven't really been able to go back. I just got invited to the Shanghai Film Festival, and which I love going to. I love the Shanghai Film Festival.
That's this month, right?
Yeah, and I love Shanghai. And I said to them, I said, do I need a quarantine? And they went, yeah, 14 days. And I said, there's no way I'm coming to the film festival for 3 days and sitting in the hotel room for 14 days.
Yeah.
And now all these places where they used to put you in a hotel room, you now have to pay for it. So I'm going, okay, I'm going to pay to stay in a hotel for 14 days to go to their film festival for 3. I don't think that's something I'm going to do. So I bowed out.
Yeah, and I don't think they want to pay for you to go there 14 days,
No.
and quarantine. So yeah, very interesting. So I mean, I'm getting a like an optimistic vibe from you. I think it looks like things might get back to semi-normal. Maybe not today, but at least in the next couple of months or so, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think now you just look at the concert world, your world and stuff, and people are starting to book concert tours starting in September. Last night there was a club out here in Thousand Oaks. The Foo Fighters performed. So yeah, it's coming back, and it's you got to be a little bit optimistic, but slowly but surely we're returning. I don't know if we return to normal the way we used to think of normal, but a more normal kind of lifestyle.
Yeah, and I have a lot of friends in the comedy world too, and I think a lot of them are back into, doing concerts and doing their tours, resuming. I was in a room with, I did a room with Dane Cook, the comedian,
oh, sure.
and we, on Clubhouse, and he was saying the same thing. He said his first gig is actually coming up in August in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. So like more of a larger venue type of thing. So I think it's starting to open up, and I'm hoping that I can get back on tour again. A lot of the performing arts centers are starting to open, so that should be really interesting. But thank you, Larry, for that insight. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with much more.
We will.
The reason why I created Hair Dope is because hair colors are popping everywhere. A lot of people, your favorite rappers, your favorite singers, your favorite artists, whoever, they're dyeing their hair, they're doing things like that, and this is a world full of color, so I feel like I want to feel like everyone can express themselves through my color. Well, to me, the importance of entrepreneurship is having a career that's longevity. A lot of people jump into the game and into careers of being an entrepreneur and not having longevity in what they're doing. So that's what I really feel like. You have to put your all into it. It has to be from the heart. You have to have longevity. You have to be able to stay in and stay active.
We're back with my friend Larry Namer, and we're talking about everything Hollywood. Now, one thing, Larry, I forgot to ask you, earlier when we were talking about New York is how come you came back so early? I know you were supposed to stay longer, or what
Yeah,
happened?
you know, I usually stay in New York a lot longer,
Yeah.
but I've got some stuff coming up that I'll talk about. But, you know, one of the things that I went to in New York, and it's a great example of the power of media. If anybody watched a show called Emily in Paris, which was on Netflix.
Yeah, great show.
Lily Collins, Phil Collins' daughter. And just a great shows, some of the people who did Sex in the City. And I think it actually was better than Sex in the City. I liked it more. But one episode of the show, they was shot at an exhibit called Immersive Van Gogh. And, you know, very popular show, and people got to know Immersive Van Gogh. So now that show is coming to the U.S. So it's opening in L.A. sometime in July. I think it opened in Miami. It opened in San Francisco. But it's opened in New York last Friday. I actually got invited to the pre-opening, kind of the VIP thing, and it was amazing. Just unbelievable. You see why there's such a frenzy for it. And that show, New York, even before it opened, is sold out for 8 months. LA hasn't opened yet, and it's sold out for 8 or 9 months. So it's just selling like crazy, and it's everything that it's being, you know, portrayed to be. It's this incredible immersive experience, and you kind of feel like you're living inside Van Gogh's pictures.
I heard a lot about the show, but can you tell a little bit more, like, for those of us that haven't been to the show? I mean, basically you walk into the space and there's
Huge
like,
space,
okay,
30-foot ceilings, and to make the show, and I really got into asking how they do it. I think in the New York one there were more than 66 projectors. So
okay.
just takes these huge rooms and fills them with visual and audio experiences and stuff that were just amazing. And everything was done by, you know, incredible people who do these kind of shows. I think the main guy was out of Italy. And so you kind of go into a first room and you get to see a lot of the pictures. Then you go into the big room. And then it's almost like a show, and it just envelops you in the world of Van Gogh paintings. And was, you know, floor, ceiling, the whole place just becomes a Van Gogh painting, and you're living inside of it. It was really kind of fun, and you know, I went there. I got invited to the opening, and I went with a friend from New York who's actually part of the show called Daily Mail. She's the style editor of Pandora, and you know, we went there and we were both blown away by it. It was just fabulous.
So it's something that you have to experience. I can't watch a clip of it on YouTube and have the same experience, correct?
No, it's you got to be there, because, like I say, it kind of envelops you, and you're living inside the world of Van Gogh.
Wow, that sounds incredible. Speaking of great artists and art, you know, Marilyn Monroe's anniversary is coming up August 5th, right?
The death of Marilyn Monroe.
The death of Marilyn
comes
Monroe.
up August 5th, and I'm
Yeah.
a big Marilyn fan.
Yeah,
and
I figured
stuff
I wanted
like
to
that.
ask you because I know you're a big fan.
And so we're actually going to do with Fanvestor, in our podcast, we're going to actually do like a literally a week of celebrating the life and death of Marilyn Monroe, and we're going to have a lot of guests on from Marilyn fan clubs. We've got some actresses that have actually played Marilyn Monroe and how to learn how to get into how to be Marilyn.
Okay. Okay.
There's people who've written books about Marilyn, people who've written plays about Marilyn, movies about Marilyn. So we're kind of bringing all these people together for like a week of celebrating Marilyn. And that'll be, you know, around the August 5th anniversary and stuff like that. And we hope to go live and let the audience and Marilyn fans talk to, you know, a lot of the people that are very knowledgeable about all the things Marilyn was about.
She has a lot of fans, right, still?
It's amazing. I mean, I've got a company in China, and I was so surprised that when we were doing this show called Hello Hollywood, one of the things that they were asking, they're going, well, the anniversary for Marilyn Monroe's death is coming up. Are you going to be covering that for us? And I'm going, I really didn't know that people in China knew who Marilyn was, but she's probably, particularly out of the country, she's as big, if not bigger than ever. And, Marilyn Monroe collectibles, just the values are going through the roof. I have one.
Do you have one?
Yeah,
I was going to ask you. What do you have?
I bought at an auction. Marilyn Monroe married Joe DiMaggio, the famous baseball player.
Yes.
And they got married in San Francisco. And at an auction, I actually bought a marriage license. So when her and Joe got married, I have the.
Does it have their signature on it?
It has their signature on it. It's got the stamp of the court and all of that stuff. So it's really cool. It's one of the collectibles I'm most proud of.
Well, you got two. Joe DiMaggio, of course.
Yeah.
Him, having his signature in there.
Joe is great, and I love Joe, and I'm a big Yankee fan. But Marilyn is,
yeah.
Marilyn is Marilyn. There's never been anyone like her again.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people talking about Marilyn. Did you really think that she was a great actress?
I think she was a good actress, but she was a great personality. I mean, she just made you love her and feel something for her and stuff like that. And her movies, are they Academy Award-winning performances in a dramatic sense? Probably not, but were they fun and great things that you just loved watching? Yeah.
Yeah, she was she's an American icon, right? I mean,
yeah.
When you look back, you think of James Dean, you think of Marilyn, you think of Brando. I mean, some of these, actors that really define the old Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
She's one of them.
She is absolutely one. And you think about it, with the way, media portrays women today, there's, a whole thing about body shaming and, trying to skinny people are better than people. Marilyn was not a skinny person. Marilyn was a full-on, just gorgeous woman and stuff. And I think she kind of redefined it for actresses.
I think that's going to be very exciting to be able to celebrate, her and her contributions to Hollywood and to film industry. So I'm looking forward to doing those podcasts. I think it should be a lot of fun. But right now we're going to take a break, and we'll be... that I really like about you is that you get involved in these wonderful charities. I know over the years that I've known you, you're always involved doing these great projects, charities, always about giving back. But I just heard that you're involved in a brand new project that I'm dying to hear about.
Sure. With Fanvestor, while Fanvestor is primarily involved in doing crowd-funded securities related to celebrities and their fans, and soon to be doing NFTs and doing collectibles. One of the most fun things for me is dealing in the charity areas, and Fanvestor has two pretty big charity things coming up. One has to do with anti-bullying, which we'll talk about on the next show, but one that I'm really, really excited about because I think it's just an amazing story. And a story that has to be told. It's called The Two Richards, and it's a group of filmmakers that are really, really into the whole issue of diversity and telling, the story of American history from, kind of the unsugar-coated version of American history. They're doing this project called The Two Richards, and going back in the 1800s, I think it was 1820 or something around there, there was actually an African-American Shakespeare troupe in the United States. It was the first one. It was the only one at the time. And they were performing in New York City and doing very, very well. There were some pretty good actors and stuff that have come out of there. And they were planning on doing one of the Shakespeare plays, Richard III. But there was also an all-white Shakespeare troupe there that found out that the African-American troupe was going to do Richard III literally at the same time they were doing theirs. So they just went and burned down the theater of
Oh wow.
the press. So we're going to do working with some filmmakers that are going to do this very cool documentary about what really happened there. And the nice part about it is we'll do a fundraiser. I think it's going to kick off September 13th, where we start doing a fundraising on Fanvestor, and they're going to use the money. It's all the 501c3, so it's a recognized charity, all legit and straight up. They'll do a documentary, and the documentary will go on, Netflix or Amazon or one of those. It'll then be available in schools, and they're making teaching aids so that teachers will then have materials given to them for free to help them bring that story to their classroom, which is great. And then last but not least, whatever money is raised beyond being able to pay for that goes back into becoming scholarships for underprivileged kids or at-risk youth who want to get involved in the theater. So really, really exciting project, some great people involved. And I've been doing a little bit of a reach out because we want to get celebrities who understand the cause and sympathize with the cause and are willing to not necessarily give money. I mean, if they want to give money, great. A lot of celebrities that as soon as I talk to them about this are just jumping on board because they want to help. They love the story. They think it's a story that should be told, and they like the educational component and stuff. So we're reaching out to celebrities, not asking them for money, but asking them to use their social media presence and their power to help drive people to the page where you can donate and stuff. And it's being set up so that it'll launch on September 13th. It'll go live on Fanvestor, and you donate a certain amount and you'll get the t-shirt, and you donate a little more and you'll get the hoodie or anything like that. So a lot of reasons for investing in this beyond just the nature of the fact that it's a story that should be told. And we're getting people, sports stars are coming on board, movie people, TV people, corporations are now beginning to contact me to find out how they could participate. So the Two Richards is going to be an amazing project, and it's a lot of fun. And for me it's great because it's a big, juicy project and stuff, and the people are great, and the cause is perfect. So,
and the educational component of it, I think, is very interesting because, I certainly didn't know about this, right? And a lot of people are not aware of it, especially younger kids. I think, to be able to give that story to schools and for the kids to be able to learn about this, I think it's huge. So, are we going to have some kind of we'll go ahead and put the description, the link in the description below. But, so what is it that you want our viewers to do? What would be the best thing that we can do to help this cause?
Well, we're going to be, bringing on, from, let's say, mid-August, September 13th, a lot of guests that are being supportive of this. Again, I can't mention the names now, but famous actors and sports figures and stuff like that. So we're probably going to have more guests than we know what to do with, but we'll have a lot, and they're going to be able to talk about why they're supporting the project, but also tell you where you could go to participate and where you could become part of this, and again, it's bringing real history to people, and it's a history that people should understand.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful, Larry, that you're getting involved in this. So please make sure you subscribe to this podcast because we will keep you updated with all these great guests that we're having. And Larry, it's been thank you so much. It's been really informative. We had a wonderful show today. I mean, I hope that all of you guys learn a thing or two from a giant like Larry Namer, but it's always fun to do the podcast. Anything else you want to say before we go?
No, it's good. I think next week, if you guys want, just check out fanvestor.com. New website is launching, and there's actually sections for this podcast, so you'll be able to very easily find out who's coming up next. You'll be able to go back on archived episodes or anything like that. So check the Fanvestor site next week. and you'll see it looks better and works better.
And anything you want to see us do, anything that you want to hear us talk about, please put it on the comments down below, and we will, make sure that we talk about it and bring it up on one of the upcoming shows. So thank you, Larry, again for doing the show. Had a wonderful time, and thank you for all of you guys for watching the show, and we will see you next time.